It's a tale as old as time itself. Be careful what you wish for. We've got a ProRevenge story based on that coming up in just a bit. But first, to the DoorDasher who stood and stared at me the entire time I made your pickup order, I do apologize for whoever was waiting on their order, but your DoorDash driver sincerely sucks. It was 7:15 a.m. when they came in. I asked for the name on the order, Alex, and I told him I was just finishing up a previous online order, but his would be ready in a few minutes if he wanted to take a seat. Nope, the driver just stayed at the end of the counter and stared, fully freaking stared at me the entire time I made the smoothies. What did I do? I went slower. I did not rush. I took my dang time. I'm fast making smoothies and putting the order all together, but this driver really ticked me off by being completely quiet, minus a few huffs, and just glared at me the entire time. Like, bro, I'm making the order. Please stop. I'm uncomfortable. I don't need to be eagle-eye watched. Love, your favorite Jamba Juice employee. Yeah, this is just human nature, and I'm totally behind it. I agree. When people are rushing you and pushing you for no reason, with urgency, you dig your heels in the ground and you slow down to a nice, deliberate pace. Works every time. So satisfying. Big AI 97 replied to this. When I worked in fast food in the city, the delivery app guys were the bane of my shift. I had a guy who only took orders from my store for some reason, not anywhere else, and would just sit in the corner, and the moment he received an order, would go to the front counter and try to hurry us up like he'd been waiting half an hour. He lost his job apparently when he got aggressive with a security guard on a Friday night, which led to a fight. Also, hey everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these ProRevenge videos, it would be so cool if you like the video or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, let's see how long the honeymoon lasts. Very gently petty, but a good story. This is my dad's, Dave, story that happened when he was a newlywed. No, I wasn't even thought of yet. Dad always had really soft teeth, courtesy of poor nutrition during the Depression, so dental work was a fact of his life. Very soon after coming back to work after the honeymoon, he had to get some dental stuff done, which was going to take a while. Think multiple dentist visits. Anyway, Mom, Sue, always packed Dad's lunches because he left their apartment so early in the morning, and she didn't have to leave for work until much later. Now, because of the dental work, Dad couldn't just bite into a whole apple and had to have the skins removed so they wouldn't get caught in the works, which Mom happily did for him. Now Dad was a master tradesman in a highly skilled trade, which one isn't important, and he worked with a bunch of loudmouth jokesters. They'd been ragging on Dad because he was a newlywed and they just wouldn't let up. Every day, it was another set of comments. So, when Dad comes up with a peeled, cored, and sliced up apple for lunch, the comments just got worse. The one that really got Dad, don't know why this was the one that really ticked him off, was on the order of, "Whoa, look what Dave brought today, a peeled and sliced apple. Boy, oh boy, you can tell Dave's still on his honeymoon if his wife's doing that for him." This was accompanied by gales of laughter from this jerk. Well, Dad comes home and tells Mom what's going on and says, "Sue, you know how you've been peeling and slicing my apples so I can eat them while the dental work is going on? Well, these guys have been really yanking my chain about being a newlywed and thinking you're doing this for me because of that. I want to wipe the smirk off his jerk's face. I'd really appreciate that for as long as I work there. Could you keep that up?" Mom, being cool herself, was really happy to stick it to this guy. Every day for 2 years, until Dad got a new job, when she packed an apple for Dad, it was always peeled, cored, and sliced. And the jerk? Well, as you can figure out, the comments got less and less as time wore on and finally stopped. On Dad's last day there, he made sure to have his usual cored, peeled, and sliced apple. Lunchtime rolls around and he turned to the jerk, looked him dead in the eye, took a bite out of the apple and said, "Well, I guess my honeymoon never ended." Jerk bent his head, looking at the floor, while everyone else started laughing at him for a change. R.I.P., Dad. Yeah, the best way to get even is to just be happy and prosperous. It makes your haters so angry. Great story, and yes, R.I.P., Dad. "No more be grieved," replied. "One of my sisters, when newly married, pulled the grapes off of the stem for her husband when she packed his lunch. Of course, his buddies made fun of him, so he came home and told her not to do that, to just leave them on the stem. So she did. She bought a big bunch of grapes, picked off all the grapes until there was just a handful left at the very tip, then coiled the giant stem, with the few grapes still left on, into a baggie and put it in his lunch. He was not amused, but she was. Our next story is Dryer Sheet Revenge. I admit this is stupid and petty. I have a neighbor that has very particular feelings about things. In our case, the most significant thing is a hatred of leaves. She will use her leaf blower for several hours each day when the weather is dry. This is not an exaggeration. Leaves from my trees that blow into her yard are promptly addressed. She will try to blow them back under the fence. She will also stand under her trees and try to blow the leaves off of them and over the fence into my yard. It's weird. I think she believes it's payback. The only time we interact is when either she sends her husband over to complain to us about leaves or she complains herself. I recently learned from a mutual acquaintance that she has a thing about dryer sheets. She's very sensitive to smells. I personally don't like them because of their environmental impacts, but having this information has made me not only go out and buy a jumbo pack of very fragrant dryer sheets, but I smile every time I use one now. She's finally brought me happiness after all these years. Yeah, that's a very pungent smell, a good smell, but strong nonetheless, and yeah, it sounds like she has it coming. Different take for you, replied. Good one. A cheaper and better for the environment method is using fabric softener on a cloth in the dryer. You can choose any scent if you don't like the fabric softeners available. Just a smelly rag without the lint filter will blow more smell out the exhaust. The smell won't get in your lint filter that way. As long as it's not oil-based, it shouldn't leave a residue that you can't wipe off. Our next story is, climb the tree so you can peek into my apartment? The fake AI story where the guy mentioned honey and birdseed on someone's truck reminded me of something I did back in the 90s. I'd moved to Winter Park, Florida for college and was living in an apartment with a tree directly behind that completely blocked my view of everything else, but also completely blocked the sun, keeping my apartment much cooler. Since the tree completely blocked my view, and everyone else's, I didn't worry about walking around scantily clad. One day, I was making out with a guy, kissing, nothing more than that, when I heard laughing and giggling. You can imagine my shock and horror to discover several kids that had climbed the tree who were looking in. After yelling at them and the little bastards running off, I went into the office. While there was a no climbing trees rule, they said there wasn't much of a playground for the kids to play at, and they couldn't do anything to stop the kids from climbing the tree. After the kids climbed that tree a couple more times, I had an idea. I went to the grocery store and bought 2 tubs of vegetable oil, 2 pairs of dishwashing gloves, a container of honey, and a bag of sugar. The guy who was there when this happened was 6 feet plus tall, so I called him and asked him for help. After dark, we went outside and thoroughly greased the tree around the trunk and the branches as high up as he could reach. I also sprinkled sugar around the tree and put honey around the base of the tree to attract fire ants. I could tell by footprints in the ground that the kids tried to jump up and grab the branches, but having greased the branches as far as the guy in question could reach, they had no luck, and I never had to worry about kids peeping in again for the rest of the time I lived there. Very simple, practical solution to, quite honestly, a very annoying problem, but it sounds like you solved it and they paid the price for their transgressions. Jim and Sammy replied, funny story related to trees blocking windows, but not related to baiting trees or the little creeps window peeping. For them, I recommend a paintball gun at lowest setting. Years ago, I lived in a nice little one-bed, spacious, washer-dryer on the balcony, etc. In short, very private and nice for a second-story cracker box on a major street. Oh, also, no next-door balcony neighbors. I would come in from work or working out, hot, Arizona, aka the hinges of heck, sweaty, feeling less than fresh. So from the time I hit the door and secured my gear, I was stripping. Clothes went straight out to the washer. I'd stroll back in, grab a shower, and then switch the load. One fine evening, I did just that without checking my surroundings. The lawn crew had butched the tree. It was practically bald. I'm plainly visible to the street and all who pass by. Mistake. The second. I smelled cigarettes. I don't smoke. I looked slowly to my right and see the glow of a butt. So I hit my knees and crawled back inside. Still, LMFAO. Our next story is Revenge in the Drivethru. When I was a teenager, circa 1988, I worked at a local McDonald's and regularly worked in the drive-thru. Cell phones were pretty new, few people had them, and they were bricks. Despite being new, people had already figured out how to be rude when using them. Some guy in a convertible pulled up to the speaker and I could hear him talking on a cell phone, so I waited a few seconds before saying anything. Before I could ask, he rattled off his order and pulled forward to the window. When he got up to the window, still on the phone and holding his money out the window, I just just stood there until he acknowledged me. I asked him if he ordered and listed off the order of the person behind him. He said no. I asked him what he ordered and he repeated his order. I pretended to check the screens and then told him we didn't have such an order. He said he ordered at the speaker. I asked him in my best customer service voice, did anyone acknowledge him, repeat his order, or tell him to pull forward, and he said no. I informed him that we didn't have his order, and since the next order had already been pulled up on the computer, that I couldn't take his order at the window. I absolutely could have sent the next order back and taken it at the window, or could have rung it up at the frontline register, but rudeness and dismissiveness should not be rewarded. I then informed him that he would have to go back around and get back in line to make his order. In the meantime, the line had grown around the building, but he did just that and waited patiently at the speaker for me to ask for his order the second time. Yeah, back in the days before apps and mobile ordering, the struggle was real. If you screwed up in drive-thru, your time was sunk. Top South 1771 replied, "Love that. When I waited tables, douchey car salesmen would come in with those old Bluetooth earpieces in, and I'd ignore them completely when taking food and drink orders. It was so much fun telling them, 'Oh, sorry, I thought you were on a call. Didn't want to disturb you.' It made me so happy, and their coworkers would also roast them." Our next story is, Jerk Tenant? Let's see about that. Years ago, I had a recently divorced single mom move into a rental property. She was a little high maintenance, as she'd been used to having a husband available for every single house-related thing. But I lived close by, and it wasn't over the top. Yet. One night after 10 p.m., I got a call. The light that lit the sidewalk from the detached garage to the kitchen had gone out. She demanded I come over and replace the bulb. Right that moment. When I refused and instead pointed out that light bulb replacements were the lessee's responsibility, she got snippy and said, "Well, if I fall down, I'll just have to sue you," and hung up. I have a visceral reaction to threats, especially for one about litigation. I had that house listed for sale the next day. The sign was up by noon and it sold in 11 days. I may have underpriced it, but we still got a lovely ROI. Yeah, that is some hardcore malice and pettiness. If you're willing to take a financial loss like that in order to get them out, whew, man, must have been spicy. Melodic Policy 765 replied, "A friend had a recently divorced tenant. She complained, hollered, and cussed out property manager. Same kind of stuff, wanting changes in things done like light bulbs. She was awful. Then she started dating a lawyer. She threatened litigation if she was not let out of the lease. Lawyer boyfriend started calling and threatening. They were happy to let her out of the lease. A year passes. Life goes on. My friend's daughter gets engaged. Big engagement party was held at a friend's house. Daughter's future mother-in-law and her second husband show up. Delightful people. Daughter's future father-in-law and new wife shows up, and it's the tenant and the threatening lawyer. Her face was hilarious. She went white. My friend's daughter supervised all the rental company employees. Crazy tenant had cursed at my friend's daughter, and all the rental company employees were at a party as they were like family. The woman ran from my friend any time she would approach her. We were all huddled together gossiping, not discreetly at all, and giving her the hairy eyeball. She slithered out of there as fast as she could. Time passes. Friend's daughter gets pregnant. Cursing tenant prepares all the food for the shower. It was so overdone. Party was held at friend's house, but we were all acting civilized. Baby born. Baby's mom assigns a day to her mother and husband's mother to help out with baby. Crazy tenant asks what her day will be. Baby mom just looks at her and says, "No." Flat and no explanation. One doesn't cuss at her employees and get privileges. Our next story is A Lifelong Payback. Back in the early 80s, when I was but a young buck, my father insisted on myself and my siblings attending his church. When I was around 13, hitting puberty and upset at the world, I despised having to go to Sunday school. I mean, really. Being 13 and having to spend an entire hour coloring pictures of Jesus, etc., kind of ticked me off. One Sunday, I asked my father if I could stay for the rest of the service instead of having to attend the dreaded Sunday school class. I was done with crayons, dang it. My dad said no. I was ticked, to say the least. Sunday school started after church announcements. Once the announcements were done, the kids would leave and go upstairs to the school. Well, sitting there and hearing the announcements whilst ticked about what I thought a coherent argument of, not wanting to color pictures of Jesus for the next hour, I heard a new one. The church was looking for ushers. There was a sign-up table on the way out. This is a lifelong commitment. So, as the kids were asked to leave for Sunday school, a family asked my father again if I could just stay with him instead. He emphatically said no and shooed me away. So I calmly walked up to the sign up counter right by the door, turned and looked towards him. He wasn't paying attention. Didn't matter. I signed him up to be an usher. We had the same two first initials and last name. I'd forged his signature a couple times, teenage school issues, so I had a relatively good copy. 2 weeks later, when he got the notice that he was supposed to usher, he was ticked. He couldn't say, "My son signed me up. I can't, won't do this." He had to save face. He had been attending this place since 1933, except for when in college or overseas. So my dad ended up becoming an usher for the next 20 years, every third Sunday at St. Paul's Episcopal. I got a butt whooping that today's kids would never understand. Yet, till he left the city, he showed up every 3 weeks to do his duty. He's 92 now and still reminds me of how I got him. So, are you guys on good terms now? Clearly he didn't take it in stride at the time, but has his stance softened now that he's not in the church? Liberty Gibbert replied, "I got demoted from the Sunday school duty rote after I brought in glitter and glue. After Transfiguration, Jesus was so sparkly. The 4-year-olds loved it. They were sparkly too. And the carpet, the tables, the furniture, good times." Our next story is, "If you fire me, then I'll get you fired." When I was 22, I worked at a small auto shop under a newly hired supervisor. Let's call him C. He was quite rude to customers, mostly mistreated employees, and withheld 2 of my paychecks, daring me to complain. I stayed quiet, thinking I'd lose my job. Then I overheard him bragging about rolling back odometers. I started documenting everything: shady titles, fake bills, receipts, 3 months worth of evidence. Eventually, C fired me without paying what he owed. I planned to reach out to the owner, a decent man who had no idea what was happening. His office was at a different location. However, he would visit the shop mostly to collect the weekly collections. He would treat the staff with complimentary snacks or small-time pizza party, etc. So I went straight to the owner. I handed him a neatly organized folder and told him everything that C did. The owner assured me that I would get my job back, but asked for some time so that he could investigate the matter thoroughly. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the owner. He told me to come down to the shop. He stormed into the shop with a few bouncer-like folks. The owner contacted most of our customers who were treated rudely, took their feedback, and made notes. I was confident enough that the owner had considered my evidences during his investigations. What happened to C? Folks grabbed his collar, threw him out of the shop. He walked with a puppy face and like dog with a tail between his legs. One of my coworkers replaced him, and the shop turned into a genuinely pleasant place to work. We would laugh about that dark chapter for years. I always believed in practice: do no harm, take no crap. Yeah, totally back this up. If only the whole world operated this way. You get me fired, well, I'm bringing you down with me. Gotta love that. Cake is a lie replied, "So you go through the effort of documenting his mistakes, but not through the effort of getting paid what you're owed. What a dumb made-up story. If you were as clever as you present yourself, you would have told the owner about the missing pay or reported it to the Department of Labor if you're in the United States." And Opie replied to this, "Sometimes people underestimate how hard it actually is to chase unpaid wages. You're talking about confronting your boss, risking retaliation, maybe losing your job, and then navigating a slow government process that might take months. Writing about what happened can be a way to make sense of it and warn others. Getting the money back is only one layer of the problem. The other is that it keeps happening because most workers are too scared or too tired to fight." Our next story is Pizza Pizza! Chaos! I was 22 and in college when I got hired as the assistant manager at a pizza place. After about 3 weeks of working there, the manager who hired me suddenly quit. Even though I'd only been there for a short time, I ended up running the store for months until they finally found a new manager. I was a quick learner, so I picked up things fast. They even offered me the manager job, but being in college, I didn't want that kind of long-term responsibility. One day, the new manager showed up, and she was a piece of work. Straight out of the company training program, she came in and started making sweeping changes, completely ignoring the systems we had in place that actually kept the place running. Our pizzas were supposed to be hot and ready, which meant we had to prep ahead of time, but she was all about doing things strictly by the book. During the week, sales were relatively slow, but even so, when we followed the book, we struggled and customers complained. But we made it to Thursday. That morning, I went over the sales numbers with her, explaining how 65% of the pizzas we sold were on the weekends and how crazy busy it got. I explained how every Friday we made 4 times as much dough as allowed by the book in the morning, how we rearranged the prep tables, pre-folded hundreds of pizza boxes, etc. Basically, the entire day on Thursday was spent prepping non-perishables. After we talked, I assumed she was handling it, so I started counting the cash drawers in stock. About 30 minutes later, I noticed the dough maker giving me a wide-eyed, "What? Look?" When I walked over, he told me she had instructed him to make only the by-the-book amount of dough for Friday. For context, by the book meant we weren't allowed to make more than a set number of dough balls or prep more than a set number of pizzas, wings, sauce, etc. I re-emphasized to her that we absolutely had to make more dough, summarizing everything I had already explained. She pushed back, saying we didn't need it, and went on about food waste, etc. I pushed back harder, knowing I was right, until I finally broke it down mathematically. She reluctantly caved, and we made the extra dough. Same thing happened with folding the pizza boxes. She insisted it was a waste of time to prep that many and actually sent the part-time person I had scheduled to do that specific task and a few others home early. Thankfully, I was able to fold a few stacks of pizza boxes before I went home. Crisis avoided. Now it was Friday morning, time for a fresh prep. Every time I suggested an amount of prep needed for a particular item, she pushed back. I mean, everything, from stocking Parmesan cheese packets to the amount of wing sauce we made. We finally made it up to 3 p.m. I ended up having to compromise on a few prep items for my own sanity, and because I knew the night crew could handle them without slowing them down too much. Then it was time to prep the pizzas. By 4 p.m., we usually had around 100 pizzas prepped. On weekends, we not only placed the dough onto baking sheets, but also sauced, cheesed, and even added pepperoni before refrigerating them. That's how busy it got. It was the only way to keep up. So at 3 p.m., the prep crew and I started prepping pizzas. She told us to stop. Without stopping, I explained again about our weekend volume, that someone basically had to continue to prep pizzas constantly during the rush because of demand. Basically, that what we were about to prep still wasn't enough. She told me again to stop. I didn't stop and continued to push back hard because I knew the night crew would absolutely suffer horribly if we didn't prep. By 3:30, it had escalated into a heated argument between her and I. She pulled me outside to try and put me in my place, but I doubled down. While I was mid-sentence, she turned and walked away. Frustrated, I stayed outside for 15 minutes to regroup. When I walked back in and saw it was almost 4 p.m., I was just ticked off. I knew the night crew was going to be the ones to have to deal with the lack of preparedness, and also I couldn't stay because I had an assignment due. Then it hit me. I went outside and called everyone who was scheduled that night, warning them about the mess they were about to walk into. Almost instantly, the phone inside started ringing non-stop, and since it was already getting busy, I walked back inside and jumped on a register, so she had to answer. One by one, everyone on night shift called out. She didn't say a word to me about it. By 4:45 p.m., all 3 registers had lines out the door. She was running around frantic, trying to call people in. She was calling other stores trying to get employees to come into our location, all while trying to make pizzas in a frenzy. Since she didn't mention to me that anything was amiss, I just continued to rapidly take orders for the next 15 minutes or so. Without saying a word, at 5 p.m. sharp, I looked her dead in the eye, clocked out, and left. That was my last day. I went home and never came back. Yeah, situations like this where a manager's just on a power trip, arguing with them is futile. You have to let them fail in order to concede, and my goodness, this is such an epic failure. Corktown guy replied, "What you experienced is not uncommon. If the place was in trouble, then going by the book would be a good place to begin until you've been around long enough to observe customer patterns, but walking into an existing situation, which working well, and begin to implement changes without any observation or listening to others already working in the place is foolhardy." Our next story is, "Eat the freaked up pieces then." I live with my parents and my brother, 27. He does not do anything and refuses to help with the house chores. He will legit get angry and yell when asked. My dad and I were cooking burgers for dinner, and I needed to tend to the laundry and cat, so my dad reasonably asked my brother to cut the onion, tomatoes, and lettuce. He didn't even do the lettuce. I went behind him and did it. He also has a terrible habit of purposely messing up a task so you won't ask again. Example, clean litter box and left a bag of poop on the ground. Doesn't put new trash bag in trash can. Well, the tomato and onion were cut into thick slices. My dad cut new ones, but I put the messed up slices on his burger. If you think they're okay for us to eat, why can't you? Also, for context, in our house, people who make dinner make the plates unless they're tired from a long day. I mean, that's always a great point to make. If you yourself wouldn't eat it, what makes you think I want this nastiness? My cat is perfect replied, please talk with your parents. It doesn't get better. It only gets worse. My 95-year-old grandmother still has to care for her perfectly able-bodied 65-year-old son who still lives at home. As she's aged, he's become more and more manipulative. He controls the house, and she still does all the chores and pays all the bills. At 95, she has to drive him around. He gave up his license because he does not want to drive, and pay for every single thing that he requires. This has also strained her relationship with her other children, who frantically have to step in and help her to make ends meet. Trust me, it's easier to intervene now at age 27 than it will be at age 65. This is the time to set your brother on the right track so that he can have a good and fulfilling life. Our next story is, he did what? Several years ago, I was waiting in a grocery deli line to pick up some potato wedges for my wife. It wasn't a long line. I was fourth or fifth in line and the last person in it. Up walks some lady, that's what I'll call her, and what I presume to be her daughter or granddaughter. Anyway, SL keeps trying to jump the line each time a person was served, and the patient deli worker kept telling her she needed to wait her turn, with SL getting more and more frustrated that she could not just do what she wanted. Guy before me goes, and I hear her telling her daughter/granddaughter, this is freaking ridiculous. I just want some wedges. This being petty revenge, we know exactly what I plan to do upon hearing that. Finally, we get to my turn, and she tries to jump again. Only this time, I pipe up and let her know the end of the line is behind me. She did not like that at all, exclaiming, this is bullcrap. It's first come, first serve. The worker and I just stared at her until she walks back to her irritation area off to the side, and I see there are scant few potato wedges available. So I tell the worker I'll need more than what's available, and he says they'll need to drop some more. About a 5-minute wait. It was longer than that, closer to 10 as it turns out. Knowing what the lady wants and that it's not there, I say he can help her. They go through the same process, which irritates her further, but says something like, fine, might as well at this point, and steps aside in a huff. Now, the wedges are brought out, and I see her start to move like she's going to jump in front of me, but I remind her I'm next to order. Deli guy asks how much I want, usually in pounds, and I quietly say, I want all the wedges. All of them? All of them. He cracks a bit of a smile and says, sure thing, and gathers them up for me. I start to walk away, slowly so I can see the aftermath, and shrilly she shouts, he did what? And whips her head around to me. I wish I could say I locked eyes with her and ate a wedge right in her face, but alas, that idea came to me as I recounted the tale to my wife at home. Best $14 I've ever spent. So on one hand, this is funny because lady had to wait, but on the other hand, she ended up getting fresh wedges. If you had just let her have the old and cold ones, that would have been equally funny, but either way, I get what you're going for. Good stuff. Johnny Wishbone replied, as someone who's worked in deli, I've had similar things happen to me. I can, with confidence, say you made that deli worker's day by doing that. I guarantee that guy still tells people about the time an inconsiderate customer got her comeuppance. Okay, everybody, that is all the time we got for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below. And if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. I got nothing else for you. I will see you all next time.